We are now moving into the second section of the training, where we will be focusing on exploring regulation and levels of energy. Up to this point in the training, we have introduced you to a number of different terms: sensory processing, sensory preferences, sensory seeking, sensory avoiding, poor registration to sensory input, and being a sensory detective. We hope that this information has helped you to understand that how a child processes sensory information has an impact on their ability to stay calm and focused during their day at school. So now we're going to talk about regulation. Regulation is a term you may have heard a lot about. You may have heard other staff talk about regulation. This may have been through your speech and language therapist or your occupational therapist. So the question is, what is regulation? Regulation is the way we match our energy level to an activity. Regulation is combining our sensory experience with our thoughts, our emotions, and our sensory connections in order to monitor and change our levels of energy to successfully achieve our activities. Take a look at the picture on the screen. Imagine there is an engine inside your body. The different colours represent different energy levels. These energy levels are important because they help us respond appropriately to various situations. When we're in the blue zone, we might feel slow and low on energy. This is helpful when we need to rest, but when it's time to work or learn, we need more energy to focus and stay calm. In the green zone, we have just the right amount of energy to focus, learn, play games, spend time with friends, and complete tasks. This is where we function best in everyday activities. The yellow zone is where we're more energetic and ready to be active. This level of energy is useful for activities like playing sports, attending parties, or any situation that requires quick movement. However, it is difficult to focus and sit still when we're in the yellow zone because we have too much energy. The red zone is when we're at our most intense energy level. This can be helpful in emergencies when we need to react quickly, but it can also make us quick to act in ways that might be dangerous or harmful to ourselves or others. This is what we call the fight, flight, or freeze response. It is important to recognize our current energy level and engage in activities that help us regulate, bring us to the optimum level for whatever situation we're in. Here is a reflective exercise for you to do on your own or in your groups. Identify one of the zones of regulation. For example, the yellow zone, when there was a time that you felt overwhelmed or upset or frustrated or irritable. Now consider how your body felt during this time. What did you do to feel better? By doing this, did you feel you were more able to move from the yellow zone to the green zone and result in feeling more calm? Remember, we all use different ways to calm and regulate ourselves. We have finished talking about regulation, and we will now talk about how energy levels impact on regulation and on emotions. We will use the characters from the movie Inside Out to create an example for different levels of energy. If you are not familiar with this movie, the main characters represent our different emotions: joy, sadness, anger, fear, anxiety, and boredom. You will notice we have used the same picture in the previous slide when we talked about regulation. This is to show you how closely linked energy levels and regulation are, and that one impacts on the other. When you are sad, or bored, which is in the blue zone. You may also feel a sense of disinterest or melancholy, and you might feel disengaged or uninspired. This represents how difficult it can be to engage when you have low levels of energy and motivation. Typically, these are the children that were mentioned previously who have poor registration to sensory input. When joy is in charge and you are in the green zone, you feel engaged and content with a balanced level of arousal and interest. Joy is the ideal level of arousal for focused activities when you are actively involved and enjoying yourself without feeling overwhelmed. However, there will be times that you become excited and jump with joy. This will take you into the yellow zone. Therefore, it can be difficult to stay in the green zone all the time. Fear represents a moderate level of energy, which is in the yellow zone. You can also experience this level of energy when you are excited, playful, and energized. You might feel attentive and cautious, but you may also be ready for action without being excessively stressed. In the yellow zone, you are more alert and aware of potential challenges, dangers, or excitement. Things might annoy you, but it still remains manageable. When your emotions reach a higher level, but not yet reached its peak, it's like experiencing anxiety. Between yellow and red zones, there's a heightened state of alertness and unease where you might feel nervous, irritated, or apprehensive, leading to a more intense emotional response without reaching full agitation. However, if these emotions are not being resolved, it will lead to the highest levels of energy, the red zone, where anger is in control. Emotions are at their peak. Everything feels intense and urgent. Anger represents physiological and emotional responses being at their most heightened, leading to feelings of being out of control. At this point, some children may exhibit extreme behaviors that can often be hard to manage and can have an impact on how they cope in the classroom, dining hall, or in the playground. It can also have an impact on how they interact with other children around them. Remember, there are always things we can do to move between different zones to make ourselves feel better. It is important to identify a child's level of energy so that you can choose the most appropriate activities to support them at different times during their day. We understand that all children are different, and there are many who will only have fleeting moments in one zone before they switch into another. And this can be hard to manage in a classroom full of children. But we hope that by understanding regulation better, the right activities can be selected and introduced so that you can then start to see a difference. To simplify things, if the child is in a low energy zone, the blue zone, then some fast movement activities can be used to help increase their energy levels, making them feel more alert. If the child is in a high energy zone, a yellow or red zone, then introducing calming activities would be more beneficial. It is impossible to include every idea or activity in one list that would work for every child. So we would encourage you to visit our Sensory Zone webpage and the Education Resource Pack for schools under Supporting Regulation and Transitions for ideas that can help. Feel free to pause the video now and scan the QR codes for ideas to support regulation of children. As we approach the end of this workshop, you may be wondering, how do we find a balance between all of these things that we have spoken about? Sensory preferences, regulation, and underlying energy levels in order to take part in activities at school. It is important as adults who support children at school to use the information you have learned to try and find the balance. You can do this by making reasonable adjustments for children in the classroom, becoming mindful of the demands we place on children, helping children to use their sensory preferences across the school day so that they are happy, comfortable, and engaged at school. So how do we do that? Let's have a look at the next slide. Using the knowledge from this workshop, we can begin to make reasonable adjustments to the environment at school to accommodate children's sensory preferences. If possible, remove or reduce some of the more challenging sensory experiences that cause stress and an increasing anxiety. For example, for children who are sensitive to noise, having access to ear defenders, earplugs, or headphones can make a big difference. And use appropriate regulating sensory activities at key times in the day to help children cope better and for longer. You can support children who need calming input by offering the class some heavy work activities, such as push and pull activities or movement breaks. For children who need alerting input, you can use bouncing and swinging activities to help wake up their sensory systems. All the sensory activities and strategies are available in our school resource pack under Supporting Regulation and Transitions for your reference. Let's now review what you have learned. Please scan the QR code to complete the quiz. Please ensure that we have your correct email address. Also, please remember to complete the short feedback form afterwards. Thank you for joining this training to learn more about sensory processing and regulation. We hope that you have a better understanding about regulation and how to support children at your school. We hope this training has been helpful. If you require further support or information, please contact the School Hub team by calling the OT Hub line. You'll find the details on our OT website under the Bringing OT into School section. Thank you.